Russia should have been economically brought to its knees a long time ago, facing the toughest sanctions in modern history. It lost half its trading partners, and billions vanished from its reserves. Yet, in the war's fourth year, it attacks more brutally than ever. Hundreds of drones and Iskander missiles hit dozens of Ukrainian cities, raising one question worldwide. How does Putin's regime still manage large-scale weapon production? Welcome to Beyond Borders, where we reveal hidden connections, power struggles, and conflicts shaping our world. This video explains how Russia dealt with sanctions and now makes more drones and missiles than at the war's start. We'll also look at what economic problems are pushing the regime to the wall, from low funds and inflation to oil price dependence. And we'll also explain why Ukraine is coming under increasing pressure in the air. Why can't the West keep up with delivering air defense systems? Let's discuss. Strikes from recent days. Let's start with what happened just a few days ago. On the night of the 3rd to the 4th, in July 2025, Russia launched its largest air attack since the war began. It launched over 500 drones, mainly Iranian-assisted Shaheds, and fired more than 10 missiles, including Iskanders and Kinzhals. Kyiv was the main target, but Dnipro, Kharkiv, Chernihiv, and Zaporizhia were also struck. Ukrainian air defense shot down most of the attacking weapons. They say about 480 targets were destroyed. Still, debris and missiles struck apartments, schools, and infrastructure. At least one person died and more than 20 were injured. This attack was shocking also because it happened almost at the same time as a phone call between Putin and Trump, which led to speculation about whether Moscow wanted to demonstrate its strength. How did Russia increase its weapons production? How is it even possible that Russia is able to carry out such massive attacks in the fourth year of the war? The sanctions were meant to cripple its production, but several factors explain why that didn't happen. The main factor is cooperation with Iran. Russia created its own version of Iranian Shaheds. And it has been by the summer of 2025 alone, it could have produced up to 6,000 drones. This lets Russia launch mass air raids that overwhelm Ukrainian defenses. The second factor is Russian spending on armaments. Russia's total planned military spending for 2025 is estimated at 15.5 trillion rubles, which represents a real increase of 3.4% compared to 2024 and accounts for more than 7% of gross domestic product. More than 40% of the federal budget is allocated to the war. The third key is bypassing sanctions. Russia uses intermediaries in the Emirates, Turkey, and Kazakhstan. Payments are made in gold or in local currencies. The West has restricted access to chips and bearings, but the Kremlin has found ways to still obtain these components. And the fourth reason is priority. Russia has largely halted civilian airplane and car production to focus on armaments. For example, the fighter jet manufacturer Sukhoi plans to increase production by 30%, but at the same time is laying off managers so that the money goes directly to production. Everything is going to the front. Russia faces major economic issues behind its military power. The Russian economy is not as fine as the propaganda claims. First, the National Wealth Fund is running out. Before the war, Russia had over $170 billion in reserves. By June 2025, liquid reserves fell to $31 billion. Russians have already used much of the money on the budget, war, or supporting the ruble. Secondly, inflation and interest rates. In May 2025, year-on-year inflation reached 9%. The central bank keeps interest rates high, currently at 20%. This restricts consumption and investment. Thirdly, the economy relies on oil and gas. Russia claims it's shifted exports to China or India, but profits rely on oil prices, which aren't always rising. Lower oil prices caused the state's revenues to drop rapidly. Fourth, civilian sectors are declining. Car manufacturing, construction, and aviation are all down. Only the arms industry is growing, but that's not sustainable for millions' daily lives. And the fifth point, slower growth. Russian gross domestic product did stay above zero in both 2023 and 2024. But analysts point out that this growth is mainly driven by the arms industry and war spending. In 2024, the Russian economy grew by about 3.6%, but the forecast for 2025 has already dropped to just 1 to 1.5% growth. All of this probably forced Putin to make a turnaround when he made an unexpected statement a few days ago. He said he plans to reduce the military budget in the coming years without giving further details. He mentioned rising inflation as one of the factors. The video continues after a few seconds. I just want to quickly ask you to subscribe and like. We'll continue right away. Ukrainian defense problems. However, none of this changes one fact. At the front, especially in the air, Russia is starting to have the upper hand. The reason is Russian production and Ukraine's issues. Ukraine is dramatically lacking air defense systems. Patriots, IRISTs, Norwegian Advanced Surface-to-Air Missile System, all of them are scarce. The Americans have recently stopped deliveries, which will cause a major problem for Ukraine in repelling Russian airstrikes. The shortage will significantly affect air defense, especially when it comes to the necessary missiles for the Patriots. Additionally, the West struggles to produce new missiles quickly. Manufacturing Patriots or Norwegian Advanced Surface-to-Air Missile System missiles takes months. Russia is exploiting this by launching attack waves that overwhelm defenses. Each Shahed drone costs just tens of thousands of dollars. Firing a Patriot missile can cost $3 to $4 million. This math is brutal for Kiev. What is the West waiting for? And we must not forget one important question. What is the West doing? Even here, reality is less hopeful than we wish. Ukraine is getting modern systems like Patriots, IRIST, and F-16s, but the West can't produce enough ammo, missiles, or spare parts. Many weapons have been sent to Ukraine, leaving warehouses emptier than at any time since the Cold War. Meanwhile, the United States is experiencing political tension, with aid to Ukraine now a major political issue. Trump repeatedly claimed he'd end the war in 24 hours, but months later, nothing's changed. NATO allies' fears were confirmed. A new president means a new Ukraine policy. Europe faces a problem. Missile and drone production takes months, and public war fatigue is rising. People face inflation, rising energy costs, and many oppose sending billions to the war indefinitely. The West continues to support Ukraine, but its military-industrial complex is too slow, and Russia is very well aware of that. The new face of the Russian war, cheap weapons, mass attacks. The Russian war has a new face today. Now, war isn't just about tanks, artillery, or planes. It's about cheap, mass-produced weapons. Shaheds, which Russia buys or produces, cost only $20,000 to $50,000 each. That's ridiculously little compared to the price of a modern air defense missile. Firing a single Patriot missile can cost $3 to $4 million. Russia relies on this, launching hundreds of drones at once to overwhelm Ukrainian defenses. What we're seeing is a war of attrition. Not all drones have to hit their target. Ukraine is using costly missiles, while Russia still has resources for more attacks. This strategy is relatively cheap but extremely effective in the long run. That's why analysts say that the future of war may belong to swarms of cheap drones. If Ukraine doesn't get more systems, it won't be able to shoot everything down, even with the latest technology. Putin is gaining something even more important than just direct damage with this tactic. The psychological effect, nightly sirens, people running to shelters, fatigue, fear, and uncertainty, part of his military strategy. Ukrainian airstrikes on Russia. And to have the full picture, we also have to mention the other side of the air war. Ukraine has long stopped relying only on defense. In recent months, it has been attacking deep into Russian territory more and more often. While Russia focuses on massive strikes on cities and infrastructure, Ukraine has a different tactic. It strikes surgically, mainly targeting sites that threaten Russia's war efforts, like refineries, weapons depots, military factories, or air bases. Since early 2024, Russians have reported multiple drone attacks on refineries in Tula, Kazan, Nizhny Novgorod, and Ufa. Flames rose tens of meters high, and some plants had to completely halt production. Ukraine also hit Black Sea oil terminals and Russian logistical hubs used to transport army fuel. But the biggest coup came in June 2025. The Ukrainian Secret Service Security Service of Ukraine launched Operation Pavuchina, Spiderweb in English. It was a coordinated series of attacks on Russian air bases. They deployed 117 drones in the operation, which struck dozens of aircraft, including key strategic bombers. Intelligence sources report that over 10 of these machines were destroyed. Some of the targeted air bases are located more than 1,000 kilometers from the Ukrainian border. It was a clear message to Moscow: Ukraine can strike anywhere. Ukrainian drones also hit the Kupol plant in Izhevsk, where TOR M2E air defense systems and Harpia A1 drones are produced. Explosions there in July 2025 caused a fire, 3 people died, and more than 30 were injured. Drones also hit an optical factory in the Krasnodar region, which produces targeting systems for tanks and aircraft. In Crimea, drones destroyed a Panzer S-1 system radars, and Sukhoi 30 fighter jets, the Ukrainian army is using them. More creative methods like catapults launching drones from unexpected locations. The Bober, a highly successful model, costs about $110,000, and crowdfunding first-person view drones also play a significant role, destroying Russian BUK systems or radars for just a few $100s. While Russia plays on quantity and psychological pressure, Ukraine plays on precision and shock value. And it shows that even Moscow is not safe from the war it started itself. So where are we today? Russia remains under sanctions, its economy is declining, and reserves in many sectors are depleting. In weapons production, Russians have regained momentum, investing heavily, bypassing sanctions, and working with Iran and North Korea. Ukraine is currently struggling with weak air defenses, giving Russia the upper hand in the air war, and that could also determine the further course of the war. The question is, how long can Putin maintain this war economy, and when will the turning point come? Thank you for being with us on the Beyond Borders channel. Keep watching so you don't miss the stories and connections that move the world. Don't forget to subscribe and like. See you next time.